4:30. Let's see, the May 31st meeting, special called meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Operations Committee. We have myself, Melvin Campbell, Tricia Fidricks as committee members. Are there any, I don't have Zoom up, is any other board members online?
David is there.
Okay.
He's not on camera.
All right, we need to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is over there behind us.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
Under
nation,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda with an amendment.
Okay.
So I move to amend the agenda by adding AR HRS 18 vacations and holidays.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mel Campbell. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're going to add that, and we'll add that before we get started on the May 18th, because we do have Wendy on the line, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you.
Okay, any public comments?
No public comments.
Wendy, do you want to bring us up to speed on the AR?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much, board members, and good afternoon. We needed to update you. This is an administrative reg that we need to get to our staff before summer starts, and it's an amendment to the HRS 18, and the amendment are as follows: under section 4 non-work days, President's Day, the third Monday in February, and Juneteenth, which is June 19th, have been added as non-work days. And we've also added the Beaufort County Schools Coherent Governance Manual to have the board's policies in there. And I appreciate so much that I can address this with you today so we can get this out to the staff tomorrow.
Well, I looked it over in advance. I don't have any questions. Juneteenth was approved as a national holiday. So, Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions?
No,
Should we just call for a vote?
let's catch up.
You don't vote on the AR.
Okay, then we just, what do? We just, they're just
She
now.
has shown it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have to
That's the
acknowledge it.
official presentation right there.
Okay,
right?
Yes, sir.
And it
And
doesn't-
thank you all so much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I apologized. I missed the approval of the May 18th committee meeting minutes.
I move to approve the May 18th, 2022 committee meeting minutes.
A second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right, Robert and Carol.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna start. So as you know, our goal is to have an approved list at the end of this meeting so that we can present it to the board on June the 7th. So what you got to board docs is a completely revised spreadsheet recommendations. Recommendations haven't changed a whole lot, but if you start comparing what we gave you to what you had before, you will see a whole lot of numbers have changed because you all asked, and so we asked CBR Heary to do some updates on cost. So there's quite a few cost changes that have occurred, especially in the painting and HVAC. So I don't know how you all want to look at this. You've had a chance to look at it over the weekend. If you have specific questions, if you want to go line by line, if
You want Kevin to put his up?
oh yeah, Kevin can pull that up. I'm sorry.
Can I
And we
get,
can-
Go
Robin,
ahead.
can
Go ahead.
okay. All right.
And we can
Thank
do
you,
this
Robin.
however.
Mr. Campbell, Ms. Fidrich, do you guys have a preference? Do you want to kind of go at it? Should we go line by line? I mean, I'm good with line by line, then we'll kind of capture everything. Does that work
Yep.
for you, Mr. Campbell?
Because if we're going to recommend,
I'll do whatever.
Okay, we'll go line by line.
Okay. So I'm gonna go by, Kevin, you've got them sorted by just the recommended, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're just gonna go with that. I think the sheet you all have has everything on it. Okay, so do you want to go through the ones that were pushed, moved, or you just want to look at what's recommended?
I wouldn't mind going through, let's just go through the push. Most of them we'll be able to probably go through really quickly. But I think there
Okay.
may be a couple questions about why something was pushed.
Okay. So Kevin, if you'll show all of them.
And there was one that was removed, a couple removed that I did kind of want to ask why it was removed.
Okay. Some we sort of combined. And so.
Right, I figured
Yeah,
there's a reason. I
there's
just
sort of a
wanna-
duplication of verbiage on there. And so we just did some combinations on some of those.
Okay.
Okay.
Kevin, gonna do it? Or should we?
I would say if you have questions about specific ones, let's just go down that list and ask the question on each line item. So item 1 was a push. Item 2 was a push. Item 3 was recommended.
But I do have a question
Mhm.
because we noticed, I mean, it went from 178,000 on the first list to 427,000. Does that represent inflation on a tennis court resurfacing?
Kevin, do you want to take that or you want me to answer it?
Well, it takes into consideration not only the inflation, but also the materials and labor increases.
So where did this original number come from then? I mean, just because it's over twice plus.
It was one we've been tracking. I mean, it's one we've had in our system. That's as we're moving from one to the other. It's one we've had in our system for a while. The actual most recent courts that we have done were coming in higher, and then our inflation costs have gone even higher than that. So yes, that is a significant increase. Anything to do with paint, coating, anything of that nature is going up dramatically.
So is this the year to do it? I mean, is there any thought to, because it has increased 2.5 times, is there any thought to not sticking to the schedule and putting it off and see? I mean, is this our new normal? Are we anticipating this is our new normal?
I would say yes. I do not see prices coming down. And I would say that if we put off a court, we will hear about it, because when once they get to the end of their life, I can tell you, Beaufort High is already asking to have their court resurfaced. So they will notice if we do not do it as scheduled.
Have we considered using different materials, clay courts versus coating? I mean, just in terms of if we have 6 high schools that are getting, 500, how often do we replace tennis courts or resurface tennis courts?
10 years. I believe it's a 10-year cycle.
And the material you're using right now is probably the most cost efficient for durability.
Yeah, I was gonna say, actually, I think it's an 8-year cycle because we're doing May River.
I saw May River on there, yeah.
Mhm.
In fact, I think it's on
Oh,
2023.
yeah,
It might be in 2023. Yeah, you're supposed to be doing it this summer.
It's an 8-year cycle.
Now you have down there 108,000 for May River
For this year?
for this year. Obviously, that's going to change a lot.
Talking
in
about the
23.
So what you're probably seeing is that was needed to be, that's actually what's budgeted. I believe it went over budget and we had to move money out of contingency for that. So that's how we're seeing costs go up dramatically.
So that's already been done then?
It's in the bid process. Yeah, I mean, it's,
And that's part of the reason we asked them to take a look at those costs. We saw that all the bid stuff was coming in much higher.
Yeah.
And
Paints.
so since we were at this point of looking at it, let's look at all of them and make adjustments.
the numbers that we recently had coming in, especially on painting schools, were shockingly high. So after getting those numbers, that's when we asked them to revisit all these numbers.
Which is going to bring me to my next question. Skipping irrigation for entry, unless someone wanted to address that. Remove the painting the partial building, 766,000. I thought those were kind of like set in stone.
For some reason, this was left on here. Bluffton High is actually being done this summer. It will be completed this summer. So that was off years. It's not scheduled to be done this.
And I think that was part of that transferring over from one database to another, how it ended up in this one in that year.
It's not on this list. So is it something we added out of contingency or?
It's not on which list.
2023.
From last year, the approved list.
Yeah, well, what you guys gave us 2 weeks ago. I can go back and look and see what was on the, I was just wondering, because it's not on there, and if it's $766,000, I mean, how much contingency does it have? I'm just thinking about, we're gonna
Bluffton High, we actually split into 2 years. So we did it last summer and this summer. So the funding for it for this summer was last summer's funding
that does ring a faint bell.
because it was so high and we thought there were some COVID issues. So we only did, it was scheduled to have an entire building painting. We only did the corridors last summer, and this summer we are doing the classrooms. The total cost is, when you put the 2 summers together, is close to $1 million. That is
Last year
astronomical.
we budgeted 430,000.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess we're down to number 7.
Left the middle shade structure.
Any questions? Okay.
The middle canopies for the bus loop area. I think those costs had gone up as well.
And Bluffton Middle is one of the schools that's being shut down for summer work next summer.
And entire building.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next one. And pave the area outside the cafeteria doors. Replace restaurant doors.
So this kind of brings me to my questions, because sometimes we say repair restrooms at a school. Sometimes we say replace restroom stall doors. Sometimes we say repair restroom wide. Like, how do we decide, how do we parse out certain specific things and then have sort of group buckets in other places? Because I would think that would all fall under repair restrooms.
Yeah, so, I mean, what happens there a lot of times is we have an item we're tracking, and this was put in as a, if I had to guess, principal requirement, although this one's older.
That's a
13.
13.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's
I
only got
think that is just the
2,500
stall
bucks.
doors and not, it's not the rest of the bathroom kind of renovation, which are the bigger projects that you see later.
$2,500 to replace all the bathroom doors.
And that must be in one restroom, or it must be limited.
Okay, then I
It
guess,
could be rolled into the overall, I mean, that could come off and it could be rolled into our restroom replacement list. I think one of the things that we did do was that you asked for last time was come up with our plan for the restrooms, which we may get there when we get to that number. And I don't believe Bluffton
It is not on. that
Middle
one.
is on that list
No.
right now.
I guess one of my other questions too, it's $2,500 worth of bathroom stall door replacements, and having been in a lot of the schools, pretty much every bathroom could take some new stall doors. And we're just doing one restroom. Wouldn't that be like a maintenance issue? I mean, when does it
Could be.
trick up into 8%?
Typically, my standard is it needs to be over $5,000.
I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm just
No, I mean,
questioning.
there's
the
no
process.
your point is well taken. That one
Mhm.
could easily come off.
But no, I want them to have new restroom stall doors.
Since 2013,
Yeah, I
they've
mean,
been asking.
Give
for
them the
9
doors.
years.
I'm looking more at the big picture. I'm trying to understand how it all works.
No, your points are well made.
What categories instead of,
You want to remove it or push it?
No, keep it.
they already,
Give them the restroom stall doors, please. But I was just wondering, because we're trying to track all this stuff too. And to Mr. Campbell's point, talking about, I mean, all this just gets jumped into asset preservation. So it's hard to track what's been done and what's being done and what still needs to be done. But
And that's where we would kind of jump into the detail of what line item number 11 is, where it may have pictures or whatever that would give us more information.
restrooms are a big deal for parents.
Yes.
All right.
Roof replacement, left in middle school,
Why just the roof?
on the gym.
The gym.
It's a fairly new roof. I mean, that building was completed in 2010.
10. Mhm.
And so, but we have had problems with that gym repeatedly.
That's a big deal.
It's specific on how that gym was done. And we need to just, instead of doing repairs over and over again, we're going to replace the roof is what we're going to do.
Is it, this is since 2011, none of it was under warranty? I mean, it was replaced in 2010 and it's been requested in 2011 to be,
It actually came up sometime after and it was out of warranty because the only thing, yes, it's out of warranty.
So we've been patching it for 10 years.
Not for 10. I mean, it's been off and on I don't know when it began. It's a issue with the insulation that's trapping moisture, and it continues to have to be repaired.
Number 13.
Number 13, food service storage units at the district office. Don't think that one changed much. Renovation to add the kitchen space that we've talked about, and that will assist right choices. Replace hot water heaters. We have that on remove.
On the kitchen space thing, I thought we were out of code.
We are.
So why aren't we doing it this summer?
Because we don't have funding or the ability to get it done this summer.
The ability to get it done in terms of just like supplies and all that kind of
Design.
stuff.
We hadn't
designed it or
started
anything.
it, and
So are we gonna get in trouble?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is there a safety issue? Like food? safety?
No, it's more, it can be managed. It's more to do with ensuring, because they have hot boxes there to keep the temperature. And DHEC had let us function that way in the past. I don't know the details of exactly what their statement of out of compliance, but what our answer to them would be, with this funding, we're addressing it as soon as we can, but we can't go through the design process and these just pop up a kitchen. So we have to fund it, we have to design it, and then we can build it.
It makes me nervous because it seems like there's a safety component, but you're pretty confident that the hot box situation, no one's gonna get.
Well, it's not my area. I would say I don't have enough knowledge to talk on that. What I'm saying is we're addressing it through this as quickly as we can.
If we got funding, how long would it take to put it together though?
Well, as soon as, we have to design it and we have to build it. So it's going to be a year out. Whenever design's going to take a little while, because a kitchen is probably one of the more complicated, especially on an existing site like that. And then we're going to have to build it. So the fastest, once you tell us we can't go forward with the design until you fund it. Once we fund it, we can go forward with the design. So with this, we could be ready by the start of 2023.
So once June 7th, we fund 25 billion.
Sure,
we'll take that.
$25 million, then you can start on like June 8th. You could, in theory, start on the design process.
Typically, we're getting through this summer. We as soon as we can. Well, the good news is the architects we have on right now, the same architects we're going to use for next year. So yes, in theory, we could start the next day
Tell
with
them
the
to go.
design process. And matter of fact, we're already working on all this design work on the district office. And actually, I think they've already started those conversations.
Yeah,
So
there's some very conceptual stuff that's happened at this point,
So-
but that's about it.
they can get more serious about getting into what they're going to do for the design.
From like a board, approval, whatever oversight process. I would love to see, like, is there a fast track process so we can say, so if DHEC does come in, that there's, I don't know. I just would like to have a sense of urgency about it.
One of the things, when you're talking about a $1 million kitchen, there are some disadvantages to fast tracking. The process takes what it takes. We can do it as quickly as possible. It's got to have DHEC approval. It's got to have OSF approval, and we have to bid it, and we have to construct it. So,
And I'm going to monopolize the conversation just one more second, because I think this is the thing, right? Like from your perspective, you're looking at design and efficiency and all that. And then from our perspective, we're looking at how it affects the students, and those don't always match up, right? So these are the discussions. It's not a argument, it's a discussion.
No, I get it.
How we can do that the best. Mel, do you have any comments?
No.
So we're taking are the hot water heaters going out because they're not needed, I guess. Number 15.
I know we,
I'm trying to remember why we took that one out.
Maybe you put it in the kitchen.
It may have been sort of,
I think we're waiting on the facilities condition assessment to nail down items like that going forward. Because we've been doing some hot water heater upgrades over the last few years, so I think we're catching up with where we were behind.
That is what the purpose behind removing that was, because we're finalizing the FCA, and the FCA does include water heaters.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry, I'm holding you up. 16.
Okay. At the district office is replace the HVAC systems. We've got two units that definitely need to go.
So I do have a question about that. So it's $1.5 million to do that for next summer, but this summer we're spending close to $1 million to do the same thing. So
There's
it's
3 phases. Phase 1 is being paid for by this summer's money, and that is the 3 areas and specifically is the superintendent and human resources area, if you're familiar with that. The other phase is it's kind of the front of the building. It's the right side, the middle, and then the left side. And so I do know phase 3 is the left side. Actually, I can't remember finance or I think finance is first. That's phase 1.
So.
Phase 2 is the superintendent and HR. Phase 3 is what is ISD and what is becoming student services.
So then after the 850,000 this summer and the $1.5 million next summer, it will all be done?
So the district office is getting a lot of funding, if you'll see. I mean, we're renovating it. The HVAC is being replaced. We're adding the kitchen area. We're adding their food storage area. The only thing left is the roof. That will probably be next, and then we'll be done with the district office. And we're doing all the HVAC prior to doing the roof. So getting all that replaced, and the roof is probably you're going to see next year on the next run.
HVAC on the roof?
Yes.
So you have to take it all off to do the roof?
You put curbing and have it set up ahead of time. In some of the instances, you may have to take some off, but it should be set up where the curbing will be done when you put up the HVAC, and they will go up to that point and they wouldn't have to take them off. Some may have to be raised. I'm not going to say they all aren't, but it's better to do the HVAC first.
It is, that's my next question.
Yeah, and then instead of doing the roof and then coming back and doing all your HVAC work on a new roof. So we're doing HVAC first and roof second.
Are the HVAC units, I'm assuming, are going to be part of the facilities assessment that comes in?
They are not doing the district. Are y'all?
Yeah, they did.
just-
do the
Oh, they did
district-wide.
do the
They
district. Okay.
So
And
like
district
whatever,
wide.
all the different elementary schools and whatnot, we'll be
Yeah.
able to see. Because one of my things is I'll make sure that all the schools HVACs get the same, replacement if they're needed. Because I know that periodically they go out and everyone's miserable.
Yes.
We have yes. Schools are first. We have a failing system on the district office that fails repeatedly. So
Robin would like it to stop raining in her office.
actually, you're
Actually, it's on Molly's desk that it rains on there.
so the district office has moved to a higher priority than the schools in its current state.
We don't have any failing ones in the schools.
Oh, we do.
Oh, yeah.
We've got other funding.
We
for
do,
HVAC.
yeah.
We're-
Yeah, you'll see them on the school list.
All right.
So, okay.
And then you push the athletic upgrades.
We did push those, push the band equipment, push the elevator upgrades.
In the schools or in the district office?
That was in schools.
It
So-
was just a district level
Okay.
amount of money.
But that's not a safety thing. I mean, elevator upgrade, does that include safety?
Well, yes, it would be, but
So should we push that if it's a safety? I mean, we don't want our.
no, we have upgraded the ones that we were trying to go around and upgrade them all. There are some new code things. We're trying to bring them up to the most current code. We've replaced Beaufort L, we've replaced Ladies Island Middle, but they are functioning. There isn't one right now we feel has to be replaced immediately. And I can't remember what the code item is. I think it has to do with, actually, Kevin, you may know. I'm sorry putting you on the spot.
Okay.
What the latest code requirement is that we're trying to meet with the elevators, off the top of my head, I can't remember.
A lot of it has to do with the fire alarm and ADA requirements to where you got to bring them from an analog to a digital system.
Okay, there you go.
And so that wouldn't be considered like on your criteria, safety and security, be a top item?
What it means is it functions, as long as it's functioning, then it would be fine. Anytime you upgrade it, you have to upgrade it to the latest code, and we'd like to upgrade them. But if it's a functioning elevator, we have other priorities. But if that is a high priority, we can bring that one forward.
Anyone
I
in
don't-
particular
yeah.
that anyone's concerned about right now? That's the answer.
So Beaufort, and you will have that on the FCA as well, Kevin?
Yes, I think what Robert's trying to explain to you is that they are new codes that if you have funding and you want to get ahead of the game, you get ahead of it, but they are passing the state fire and elevator inspections. They're just noting that these should be brought up the next time around. And they are on the FCA.
What happened? We had a failure at Ladies Island.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
That's what I was thinking. That was needs assessment. I was trying to get that.
It's good to get ahead of it, just because when you have a failed elevator, it causes a lot of problems. And we ran into that a few years ago at Ladies Island Middle. So to Kevin's point, yes, our goal is to get ahead of them, but we had higher priorities than those right now.
I'm going to put a question mark next to that one. I just get concerned when we have our students with disabilities that use these elevators, and I understand we're passing inspection, but so is that the very minimum? That's the base line to pass the inspection. Whereas, I mean, when you said codes, did you not just say, fire codes and things like that?
That's just shifting from an analog, which is an old system, to a new digitalized system. It has nothing to do with the actual safety of the operation of the elevator or the ADA requirements.
And these elevators, do they talk to our system? I mean, all the upgrades we've done in the buildings, is there any, if this is still analog and everything else in our building is digital, is there any concern about that?
When we did the FCAs and stuff, all of the area refuge worked because we tested those to make sure. So based on our facility condition assessment and the operations of the elevators, they were all perfectly fine.
And they would all be tied to the fire alarm and be part of the fire alarm inspection.
We'll say jumping ahead. You look at like number 26, 125,000 to upgrade picnic tables, benches, and canopy replacements. I mean, my guess is those are still somewhat functional. Over elevators.
Yeah, well, some are those picnic tables that are sort of a plastic coated metal thing. They start delaminating, and at some point they are just not very safe. So we need to remove some and replace some. Yeah, the benches, the picnic tables, a couple other little things like that. Amenities.
Now to the flooring. Are you presenting your flooring plan?
Flooring, yeah. So we've got one that was removed, and we've just now got the flooring upgrades. Kevin, you want to pull up that flooring one? And again, this one is based off the FCA showing what's remaining life and what they've looked at. And we've got, there you go.
Did it come up?
Yep, I see it.
And you'll see the district offices in there, the last one.
Can you blow it up just a little bit more, Kevin? It is kind of hard to read. There we go. Now we can see it.
I can actually read that one.
Yeah, there you go. Do you want to talk about how we came up with this list?
Well, when you look at how we put together an actual, this is going to be kind of off the wall on you, okay? But we're extracting information that was put into CardGraph that deals with our FCA. And it looks like this. And we can do it by categories of good, fair, and or replace. And that's what we did in the sort by section. We went with those that were labeled remaining life less than 6 years. So these came up as the worst and the highest priority.
So how do you, there's three categories here: flooring upgrades at multiple locations, flooring upgrades at multiple locations remaining, and flooring upgrades. What, one was removed, one was recommended, and one is below, which I mean, I guess means if we have extra money.
Correct, right. So we were trying to keep that dollar value, you know, right there at 25 million. So you can see from that flooring plan he had, you're at $3.2 million to replace all the flooring that has that recommended life less than 6 years.
But you're,
So we're gonna prioritize $800,000 of that, knowing that we have 3.2 million left. So the rest of that, the 3 million is going below the line.
So those schools you had up there, the 6 or so
Coosa,
schools, that's the
this-
ones that made the recommended list?
Yes.
Okay.
so how will you decide? Because the district office alone was what, 1.7? Where are you gonna spend that 800,000?
We'd have to look at
Yeah.
is what buildings are closed and what makes the most sense to do.
Mhm.
The district office is a challenge that I don't know exactly because it just never closes. So that's going to be part of that renovation work. As we're renovating an area, we could replace the flooring. I actually on the list that we have to close next
1.7.
year.
Um,
I don't.
So Mossy Oaks, $4,500.
That obviously is this
one
individual area.
small area somewhere that the floor must be failing. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
It's just pulled out of a database of what they have,
correct.
spaces that they have replaced.
There's Coosa Island, and it's basically the Hilton Head schools in the district duking it out for 800,000.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And again, like Robert said, at the district office, it may be we can only just do one department. And so, you know, we relocate one department and we get it done over a summer. Whereas you would do all of another school.
Well, and we may have to prioritize,
And
and doing a
prioritize.
full school is a lot. So we may have to break it up into multiple years because
Mhm.
that's just replacing all the floor in a school is a major undertaking.
Mhm.
But you will, some of this 800,000, it won't all be in the district.
No.
No.
Okay.
At
I
the
just
district
think that we
office,
need to
no.
not put it all in the district.
No.
I think we need to
Okay.
prioritize, because I would imagine there's some degree, I mean, when you say a floor is failing, I mean, what does that mean? Is it aesthetics? Is it kids are tripping because the floor is peeling up? Is it?
No, what's happening in a lot of them, you're either getting cracked tiles, and a lot of them, you're getting actually the glue. And I know we've already replaced at Coosa, for example, the media center, because what's happening a lot, well, this is a different kind of floor, but similar to this, as you got rid of the glue, the more environmentally friendly glue
Yes.
is not as good as the older type. And a lot of times it starts to seep up and you'll start to see really black areas around every tile. And it just looks horrible and you can't
Looks
ever
like
get it.
goo. It is kind of
It's-
sticky. I don't know that it's a trip hazard or anything, but at some point you do see some crumbly VCT tile and
Yeah. I mean, VCT has a life of 50 years and, or should have a life of 50 years, but like Coosa, we've already had to replace the media center just because it looks so horrible because of all the glue that was coming up. And that has to do with moisture from underneath that's impacting the tile.
But it's not creating tripping or health hazards of any kind.
No, if we have a health hazard or a tripping hazard, that'll be replaced. And it might get replaced with a
Yeah.
tile that doesn't match, but anything like that will get replaced.
and that would get replaced through maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many colors.
Right. Right. Okay.
Thank you.
All
But you
right.
can imagine once you start having oddball tiles, we'll hear over and over about wanting the floor replaced.
But since you were talking about Mo, that's just VCT. That's an area of VCT that, just like Robert just said, it's peeling up.
And then we've got furniture replacements, kind of doing the same thing with them that we're doing for the flooring. You know, that total amount, $3.8 million. And we're just going to recommend doing 825 million and put the 3 million below the line.
Okay.
So if we can do some more. And then that last one was just remove that one.
What's between high priority funding and priority funding?
Well, it's below the line. So in other words, those are the ones you're,
Why it's named that. It's
Well, it got
just-
removed. I was just
Yeah,
thinking,
two different sources that came on that list. So we're gonna take that one off. It kind of all got combined when
So
we
we're
did all
pushing-
program that way.
we're pushing the 41 million for the new school, huh? Fair enough.
but we do want to document that we know it's needed now.
Correct,
And we just don't have the funding for it.
correct. You already talked about the picnic tables, benches, canopies that need replacement.
And again, just to point out, if this is a safety issue, if they're delaminating, I'm guessing that means that there's like rust or you said it was, heat burned. I don't know what happens when it delaminates. That'd be good to put under safety because it's so much easier to understand when it's a safety issue as opposed to we want more picnic spaces for, over elevators.
Correct. Okay. And we just have that at district level, don't we?
It says school
Yeah.
equipment.
Buses, we moved below the line. The other bus, we removed that one, so they were sort of duplicative. We took the mat replacements with logos off. Technology improvements with the PM fees added in, that's recommended. Upgrade restrooms at multiple locations. I think we also have a restroom plan that Kevin can pull up for us.
Now this one is not, none of these restrooms are getting done in 2023 because I thought we approved that in 2023.
They're on this list here.
Yeah. It's on the,
I think
was
it's
it
the
the-
exact same.
Kevin, you want to take that one?
If you're talking about what was approved and being done this summer is Well Branch Middle School, and there's 3 banks of them. The funding you gave or provided last year is probably going to be sufficient to do those 3 banks. They're in design now and they're supposed to be done this summer.
you're saying the $768,000 we allocated for restroom repairs got us one restroom that was not even one of the priority restrooms.
That's why this gets confusing.
So Kevin, they are referencing in the book we put together for them, the 10-year plan where we showed 2023.
I'm also referencing this CBRE's thing from 2023.
Correct, yeah. That showed all 10 years before we started focusing just on this 24 list. But we showed them 10 years with 2023 going forward.
What is it they're seeing that I don't see?
These schools that you show listed are showing up in that 2023
Under
list. And it just
location?
it may have been it was in the wrong year on that
Well
list.
Branch Middle School was one that we started in previous years, but had not finished. And
Rest-
they are looking to finish that project up this summer.
So we had unfinished restrooms? Like what, just,
We had renovated, when I mean
Some of
unfinished,
them.
we had renovated the rest of the building. This is what's left that needs to be renovated.
but-
Yeah, and then
okay, so-
that'll finish out Well Branch Middle School, but that was last year's funding that I was talking about. I thought she had asked about funding out of 2023.
Yeah, I am. It says 768,000 in 2023 to upgrade restaurants, priority locations to be JJ Davis, Whale Branch Elementary,
Or restaurant.
Masio, did I say restaurants? I'm tired. St. Helena, Ladies Island, Hilton Head High School, Hilton Head School for Career Arts, and Port Royal. Port Royal's the other one. And that's laid
And
out
it's
on
exactly the
CBRE.
Same as what it's here and it's here.
And it sounds like instead what we did is we decided to finish a project at Whale Branch Middle School, priority unknown, and it cost $768,000 to get 3 banks of restrooms done.
We don't know the number yet, but yes.
But that's the amount that's approved.
Mhm.
So what is the deal with this priority process? Because this was in 2014, these were priority locations. They're already 8 years. Why did Whale Branch Middle School get to jump and take all the funding?
It was actually a priority before, and it just wasn't finished.
So why wasn't it on the priority list? I mean, it doesn't make me feel good about the process that we can just sort of reprioritize after the funding's been approved.
Because I thought Freddie said at the last meeting, someone said, I got some extra money. Yeah, go ahead and finish the restrooms. Didn't Freddie say that at the last meeting?
I wasn't at the last meeting.
And I said, oh, Christmas gift.
I remember the Christmas gift on it.
Yes,
So
no, at
I-
one time, Alexander came by the school when I guess a project was completed and they had some funding left over to do to the restrooms at Well Branch Middle School at that time.
Hey, Freddie.
Hey, how y'all doing?
So that whole amount of money that we approved for 7 bathrooms to be done all went to Whale Branch Middle School because it was unfinished from prior years.
Correct. And we only funded half of of the funding. And
We
again,
funded half of the funding.
the other part went below the line. So in other words, that original list asked for a higher amount.
I think every bathroom in the district probably needs redoing.
Well,
I mean,
well, that's what the FCA is going to tell
We'll
us.
know exactly which one
And-
very soon.
And so that's where, I don't know, do you have the list that the priority list, did we already show that?
Yeah, he just had that up. but
Yeah.
Those are flooring, right?
Those were the.
No, the flooring.
No.
Do you have the restroom? No, you hadn't
He's
pulled
got a
up.
restroom.
You hadn't pulled it up yet.
Oh,
Can you pull up the restroom one?
So my frustration is that you guys are asking us to give approval of something that is just hard to understand. What you're showing us here is not actually what has happened.
So in the past, there was not as much legwork to figure these out ahead of time, which the FCA, once that is done, will help to provide us. So that's part of this whole process. Once that is complete, we will have harder numbers to give you on specific projects.
okay, so based on the list you sent me of what was approved by the board, line item 21, restrooms, 768,889. You're saying we only used half of that money?
There's also below the line.
Right.
So originally, when that's one of those things when you got to the approval, or when we were knocking it down to the 20 million, we put it below the line so that as more money would become available, we could do more of the restrooms. Right now, no money has been moved into that item below the line.
Yeah, it's all going to tennis courts.
There is no funding down there.
So we have 748,000 below the line. So what you're saying
That
is
means that's a desire. There is $0. in
right.
that.
But when you broke it in half, we put 768 above, 748 below. Apparently, you're saying 3 restrooms at Whale Branch Middle cost 768, and everything else was going to be done at 748.
We don't know that right now. The only project that we have moving forward out of that list is Well Branch Middle School, which will be in the range of the 700. To do 3 complete renovations, it will be in that range.
So when these were identified in I've seen 2014 and 2015. And the reason I'm making such a big stink about it is because I'm trying, how bad are Whale Branch's bathrooms, middle school's bathrooms, compared to the other schools that were identified as priorities, like J.J. Davis and Mossy Oak?
That's where the FCA would give you that information. We did not have that previously.
Okay, but this was from 2014. You at least had Hilton Head Island High School's FCA, because I can tell you from personal experience that they're pretty dire.
Yeah, there were restroom requests. That was a grouping of restrooms that needed to be looked at, and we desired to do work in. And the one that we have moved forward with at this time is Well Branch Middle School.
And who makes it? Who? It's just based on what was the most convenient from an engineering standpoint or from a project standpoint?
Several factors such as that, yes. What's going on in that building? Something may have popped up to bring it to a higher priority than others.
We don't have anything in particular that popped it up as a high priority.
Not that I know of, other than we could finish off Well Branch, be done with that, and move on to the next building.
Belabor the point. All right, so we were then at 34, vehicles and forklifts, which went below the line.
yes.
Okay.
Walk-in cooler controls.
What is that?
Just being able to manage the building management software that monitors all the air conditioning, all of those things. It also manages those walk-in coolers so that they know if it's suddenly not working, an alarm goes off.
So we don't lose the food.
So we don't lose that food.
Oh, okay. So it's not HVAC, it's refrigeration.
No, walking, the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a
Refrigerator, big
HVAC,
refrigerator.
that's all part of the same thing.
It's all part of that same system. Yeah. washer and dryer replacements, we removed that. 10 mobile classrooms at multiple locations. Right now, we're looking at needing probably 6 in the near future for May River. Thank you. I drew a blank on that name
We need 6 mobile classrooms at May River High.
because they are, is that announced? The name, please?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they
JROTC.
To the JRTC, correct.
Yeah,
So
Because
that's
they are
what
going to need
existing mobile.
existing mobiles for that. So then growth, this next 6 would be to manage some growth.
don't we have that in the referendum, the JROTC thing? So we're buying $2.6 million worth of mobiles because we haven't gotten them designed and built yet? Like JROTC unit? I mean, that's in the, we have funding for that, right?
We have funding for design, yes, yes.
Design.
We're doing the design. We don't have funding for the construction of it.
Correct. In the referendum.
I don't think so.
Just the design. There was only, I don't remember the number, 700,000. And for the Kate building expansion is what that was for.
I
Right.
thought Gerald, I feel like I
I
saw
don't
that
think
somewhere.
JRTC was in that. It was
No,
just
but now
Kate.
JRCC is part of Kate, so it can be included in that as well.
Oh, okay, okay.
So then 6 will go there and then the other 4.
Most likely at McCracken. So they are moving to use the mobiles that are on site. We're doing some of that work to get those ready for this year. But based on their growth numbers, they're probably going to be next in line. Pritchardville will probably be, you'll see it on next year's plan, but they will probably need more if we've not moved forward with the new school. So, digital marquee in front of McCracken. Got that one recommended. We pushed off the badge fight.
Why are we recommending to add to digital marquee in front of the school? Because what is that? Is that a safety issue? I mean, or is that just something they want? I mean, I will say I have a lot of concerns about H.E. McCracken. I mean, I know a lot of people are asking for these digital marquees. To me, that seems like the district does it or it doesn't do it, but not school by school. Unless it, what's the reason for recommending that?
They've asked and they don't have one.
A lot of schools have asked and don't have one.
Yes, in some cases, it's situations where we can't put them there.
Mhm.
Like Hilton Head, we can't put them on Hilton Head. Oh, yes, they've all asked.
They all want them.
But the problem on Hilton Head,
rules.
usually even if it's in the county, they'll allow us to put them as long as we're not on the road.
Mhm.
City of Bluffton, you can put them on the road. Hilton Head won't even let us put them off the road. We've already asked them that, and Hilton Head says we can't put a digital sign anywhere on the campus, even if it's way back down a road inside. Their zoning ordinance will not allow us to put them anywhere. McCracken, we would not. We can put it there. Obviously, that's in our
can put it
campus.
there,
We can put it right in front of the building.
And they use it as a communication device, obviously.
Oh, I could see that
Yeah,
being super handy.
yeah.
My thing is, rather than if all the schools want one, and Hilton Head, has to deal with its own town if they can't get one. I hadn't heard that Hilton Head wanted one, and I didn't see it on the request list, so this is not a Hilton Head request.
Mhm.
But we've kind of just shut them down because we know we can't build them there.
So it's not even an issue. But for those schools that want them, why don't we budget money and put them where all the schools want them, not just where grant the wishes of the school that happens to be getting painted?
Well, if that's the will of the board, we'll put the money in to put it in there.
How much would it cost? I mean, how many already have them?
Ooh.
It's,
Mm.
we'd have to do a
Right, yeah,
study
have
and
to do
count.
it. Mhm.
Because I think we do
We
need better
don't know.
communication, and for sure, in terms of getting announcements out and whatnot. So if that's gonna help and people want them, why don't we just do them all at once? It can't matter that they're getting painted.
They're getting painted.
You said H.E. McCracken because you were gonna do H.E.
Oh, we're
Oh,
doing,
because
no,
we're
that
shutting the
is,
school down.
we're doing all projects there.
Right.
So it does involve getting into the electrical panel and doing things of that nature. So yes, it's going to disturb the front and everything. So the fact that it is shut down because it's being painted is why that sign is on their list. And they've requested it.
Maybe it's just my personal thing. I just think you should do, if it's a good thing, do it for all the schools, not.
Well, but
sort of
the
one at a time.
difference is you've got a contractor on that site doing work. So it's more efficient to do work on site where you have somebody. It is more difficult if you do small projects all over the district as compared to focusing on one building and knocking out as much as you can.
Yeah,
So
but it
it's
goes
in-
to equity, doesn't it? I mean, if one school can communicate with its students and another school can't, and I know that equity is something that the CRPC mentioned and that it's mentioned in the OEs. And it seems like this sort of piecemeal approach to things, if the district determines them to be worth doing and determines them to be important and everyone wants them, seems inequitable to only do them at one school.
The district has never weighed in on whether they're good or bad.
Yeah, that's very true. Most of
We've
them have
never-
come in by
Request.
request of, someone got one, can we get one too?
Yes,
It's
what
a
you do
great
for
way to
one, you'll get
communicate.
asked eventually for all.
Right.
This is my point. Like, just if it's a good thing and the district thinks it's worth spending 40 grand on, I think we should do it. We shouldn't just do it because one school asked for it. You know, but anyways, okay, additional bad swipe for 6,000.
So what do you want us to do with the,
Oh,
Am I leaving the marquee on there or moving it?
Ms. Robine? Kathy?
Yeah, I just want to weigh in on the marquees. I've never worked in a district before where the district paid for those. Those were fundraised by the school, paid for those. Let's be honest. When those things are backed by the schools, if the kids are riding the school buses, the parents aren't seeing those for communication. With the way we have internet and everything now, I don't buy it that it's a good communication thing. Doesn't hurt, but I think we have better communication tools. I personally think that district money should be spent on other things. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Ms. Fidrick, Mr. Campbell?
Kathy's right in terms of more than funds. Why would we do something that old fashioned anymore?
My thing is,
Yeah, where's the badge swipe gonna go? Where are they asking for that where they don't have one?
I want to say it was at the back of the building somewhere. That McCracken.
McCracken
by the
they were asking for it to
bus
come
leave?
in off the mobiles.
Why, what do they have to do now?
It's
So
ba-
students are trying to get,
I don't think there's a badge swipe there. I
okay.
could be wrong.
You have to look in the book. I don't.
oh, I will,
Okay.
thank you. So that's,
That's number 39.
So
Let's
am
go
I
back
here?
to the digital.
Sounds to me
marquee
like-
Want
one.
to take the marquee off?
yeah, my thing is, I think we should do it for all the schools or none of the schools. And
it
Kathy's
doesn't say
point
anything.
is that, it's an old fashioned technology and we should spend 40 grand on something else. So I'm with that.
I'm with that too.
Yeah,
I
take
take
the
it off.
marquee off.
What I
We're
can
gonna
tell
Move
you.
it or push it?
Oh,
Oh,
sounds like we're.
Sounds like a remove to me.
That's what I typed in.
So as far as badge swipes go, every building we've ensured they have a badge swipe face of every side of the building.
mhm.
So this is obviously a request, and I don't know exactly where they are wanting another one on a face of a building due to distance or whatever.
So,
Big faculty or something? Why,
Big faculty.
why do you need 2?
Sometimes it's distance. Schools will ask for them on every door.
Yes.
Okay, you're pushing it. We're pushing it anyway. That's all right.
Okay.
So removing,
Ms. Robine, you still have another comment?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say about the badge swipe. We're concerned about school security and keeping our buildings secure. The fewer we have, the better. I think that badge swipes, people have to, usually they don't want to come in the main entrance. They park someplace else, so it's more convenient for them to badge swipe in the back. But is it the safest way?
yeah, those are my thoughts too, Kathy. So I'm okay to push this off and then maybe part of a broader discussion.
Mhm.
Okay, we're never gonna get through this.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Should we go?
Okay.
What should we want to
I don't
change
know.
course? Because I could just go
No.
straight to what I have questions about.
You know what, maybe we do have 5 pages worth and I'm just a little
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah, you're not
It's
wrong.
almost
Mary.
5:30.
Okay.
So what?
Tricia, why don't you start? with your
Okay, so
questions?
I do have, I do wonder about, we're still on H.E. McCracken. I'm wondering about lines 51, 52, and 53. Security and sun reflection windows, window film for security and sun reflection,
That's
and
right.
window upgrade. So 2 of the 3 are recommended. Are they all of the same beast? Are they the same beast?
I think item 52, we sort of combined and removed that and sort of put it with 51. 51.
So security and sun reflection windows
So
is not
that's
the same as, all right, so that's
window
200,
film.
255,000. And then there's window upgrade for about 85,000. So you're talking $340,000.
So the window upgrade, I believe, Kevin, if I'm correct, is for certain windows in that building
That is
that they
correct.
just needed to be more than a repair, but not quite a replace yet.
So what's an upgrade? More than a repair, but not a replace.
Replace the seals in the window.
Replace the seals is an upgrade.
The majority of the windows out there are high quality windows. And like Robert just mentioned, the seals, whether they be around the window or the external part of the glazing, needs to be replaced. There's several leaks around them.
So that didn't have anything to do with the film for security and sun reflection.
No.
Okay.
So my thing with this whole list is just getting to what's a priority, right? And I don't think the board does a good job of providing priority. And I think your guys' priority of making it efficient and shutting down a school and getting so much work done at a certain school doesn't necessarily always jive up with what I'm seeing from constituents and from my own personal sense of doing the right thing for the students. So I'm going to just hit the highlights on this one. The field house at McCracken. I found the Beaufort 2019 facilities assessment. The other middle schools do not have field houses, according to this assessment. They are, and I mean, I know from my personal experience on my schools, we don't even have fields, but they had a thing on here, stadium facilities, field houses. It's black
We
and white.
pushed that one.
Push that one out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm I want to make sure that we don't have fields. So some of these things that are, and I think that was at the last discussion, I didn't realize that it had gotten pushed.
And they didn't even have a field till what, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just goes to sort of, I don't like this idea that when we close down a school, we just sort of do a bunch of extra stuff, because I would say that a field house would absolutely be a referendum type of issue, and it should be district wide. So those are kind of my 2 big concerns, is that we're doing things with a sense of purpose and priority for the students, and that, we're looking at things from a whole district and not focusing on one school at a time, because it seems like half the time we have 35 schools before you get back around, you've already got to upgrade what we've done. We're just constantly putting out little fires.
Yeah.
We agree with you.
The one point we'd like to make, and I think Robert might have brought it up earlier, is if it's a principal request, whether we recommend it or don't recommend it, we track it so that the principal request is heard.
Yeah, it looks like we pushed a lot more of these things than we had in the last building. I do wonder about painting Hilton Head Island High School for $800,000, because I would guess they would rather have their restrooms fixed. But we can maybe find out, since we're supposedly going to be, we're going to do this in 2023. What you've told me is that we'll start renovating the school in 2024. I don't know. I know we've had to talk about it, but.
Well, I had a question about that one too. So is that the best use of $730,000 to paint Hilton Head Island High School for next summer? Not next month or this, but next summer, when we are going to hopefully start within 2 to 3 years?
There'd be portions of that building that would remain for, so if we start
4
next
more
year,
years.
yeah, it's a 4-year process. You'd have parts of it that won't have been painted at that point in, well, the corridors would have been painted 4 years ago. Classrooms wouldn't have been painted by that time, 12 years. So like Ladies Island Middle, we chose to paint it, even though we knew it was coming down, but we knew it would be there 2 to 3 years. Paint, it makes a big, it makes a big difference, and we will hear about it a couple years from now if we don't.
Where are you hearing about it from? Staff?
Well,
I didn't know, eventually you're gonna come back and do.
that doesn't work very well. I mean, because what we will hear is that even though you're replacing us, we need to be treated like all the other schools, is what they would tell. That is what we will hear.
I think we've been hearing that for
Exactly.
for a year. And I would say that the restrooms would be higher priority than the painting, but that's just me. So, I mean, maybe we could paint the restrooms.
So the Hilton Head restrooms, like I said before, the problem there was we went in and looked at them. And the problem was due to their date, things like screens. There wasn't the proper spacing to put screens in place. So the only way to put screens up would be to take fixtures out and completely redo it. So we chose not to. Now we can revisit that and look at it again and try to find something that we can do to improve the restrooms without completely redoing them.
I don't want to get back into the restroom discussion. I'm just saying from a sense of priority. You're saying you'll hear about it if it's not painted. And I'm saying you're hearing about it now because the restrooms are falling apart. Like at what point do we spend $700 and some $1,000, painting school? Ladies Island Middle is also up, for painting. That's another, I mean, we're talking millions of dollars for a short-term aesthetic benefit.
I meant Robert Smalls. I said
Ladies Island's on this list.
But I think it is on this list.
It's
as
on this
well.
list for a fairly, I mean, these are big ticket items. And like you said, the cost of painting is expensive. So for me, what I'm talking about is just how are we prioritizing these things? We have $25 million, I think, recurring costs, I think, asset, safety and security, equity, educational stuff. And there's a lot of little things in here, 25,000 here that I'm just not sure. I think it makes sense from a building management perspective. I don't know if it makes sense from a school and student perspective. Kathy, is your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to say that restrooms should take priority over painting. I think that restrooms have a health issue, health and safety impact. Painting does not, unless we're talking about lead paint. Painting does not. I do think that I understand the painting schedule, and I think that's a good thing to have. But we have other things have cropped up that are more important than keeping to that painting schedule. Those are my thoughts.
Mr. Smith? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, my question is in regards to I get what Mrs. Robine just said, and I think it was the last board meeting or the board meeting prior to that. I did hear. I think we were at graduation. Excuse me for me speaking. We had graduation and the kids talk about a bathroom. So that the proof is definitely in the pudding on that scenario. But in terms of painting, I see two sides of that, just because of the fact that what's being painted and why is it being painted, and what's the time on that, in regards to that, because if you're in a building that looks like it's not, that looks bad, then that's less attractive for the students, and then that also deals with school morale and pride. So that's something that I believe that we need to take in we need to take in and thoughts as well as we make those decisions. And the question is also, once again, too, is Lady Island Middle School going to get a new school? So that's just my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
I don't want to. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Fredericks, you had something to add as
No,
well.
I was just wondering, so this is for next summer. Will we know by next summer what parts of Hilton Head Island High School is staying? You just mentioned.
Our plan, I mean, you'd see the demolition. So the first thing in the current plan that, have you seen the current plan?
I have not.
Oh, We're going to show that, of course, the operations committee next week, and we could, it's online now if you want to watch the video.
Yeah, it's on the
recording.
website.
Okay, so anyway, my point is this, could we take half this painting? Can we paint the part that we know is staying?
Yes.
And this is, to Miss Boatwright's point, to Miss Robine's point, half of this and paint half of the Hilton Head Island High School and then put $360,000 to some more bathrooms. Because really and truly, when you have decrepit, smelly, ruinous bathrooms in a school building, I, as a teacher, would have preferred that be fixed instead of painted.
So if I can just answer the paint timing, the current plan would have us building the new cafeteria building beginning in 24. That will take at least a year to build. So we'll start demoing part of the school down in 25. That will be the 9th grade area first. And then by
We haven't really
26,
put it,
the
yeah.
rest of it would start coming down.
So we haven't put a time on it.
So we're
just
talking about painting in 23.
23,
that's
So-
true, 23.
So by 25, when that wing comes down, it will only have 2 years. The 26 will have been there 3 years by the time it comes down. And then
Well, see, that doesn't come down
and we
until the
t-
other goes up.
and we talked about it's going to take at least 4 years. So the rest of it wouldn't probably get touched till 27. So you are talking about parts of the building. If you paint them now, will be there. The shortest any of them will be 2 years before they are impacted. You have a section be 3 years, a section be 4 years. So could we take the 2-year port out?
Yeah,
Yes.
probably. Yeah.
Mr. Smith, I'm going to get to you in one second, but
No reason to paint the cafeteria, I guess. 'Cause
to
it'll-
piggyback on this whole thing, this is like, I was trying to figure out a way to get at this. We can go line by line. We can look at some of these things. To me, what you're telling me is that, it makes sense to paint and we have this schedule and we're closing down the school. And that makes sense from a building perspective. I'm telling you as someone who represents the constituents and has a student in school, painting is not a top priority. And that's where there's some friction going on here. So one of my issues is I feel like we can go through this list and approve, but as we've already found out, sometimes we approve it and then the priorities change. And sometimes they have to. I'm not being critical, but it does. I mean, I feel like we can either say, okay, look, the board's authorizing $25 million and you guys figure it out. Figure out how you want to do it. Do you want to do it by schedule? Do you want to do it by school? Do you want to do it? If we're going to go through and approve stuff, and I have a very different personally, and I'd love to hear everyone else's opinion about the priorities, because to me, it's educational equity, it's roof and HVAC, it's bathrooms, it's not painting and, rubber stair risers and, all these little projects that kind of come along that one school gets done all at one time. So I kind of feel like from my personal standpoint, and I would be really interested in hearing everybody else's opinion, I feel like you guys, we can give you the money and it's your call because we don't have really, great policy about this stuff. Or if we're gonna go, I feel like the priorities here don't really reflect what my constituents have talked to me about. And this is what I hear about more than anything. I don't hear about curriculum. I hear about the facilities all the time. People come up and you can see it when you walk into a school, what the issues are right off the bat. It's very obvious. So Mr. Smith, do you have any comments to add to the discussion? I see your hands up.
Yes, I do. Actually, I actually agree with a lot of what you just said. But the only thing about it is for instance, that paint could be going in that bathroom. I guess that would be a bathroom project. So, I mean, sometimes perception is reality. And like you said, a lot of what you said, I do agree with it. But with an exception that in terms of what we vote on is what the work should be done. The work should not be changed and it should not be altered. And I guess that is one thing that I think that is our job, more becoming of us as board members, to make sure that does not happen. Or make sure that does happen and that anything else does not happen. and in regards to that, because we are stewards of the district. So with that, I just think that that's something more of a board function, and that we should be more actively engaged in doing. That part is something that is it is important. We do talk about facilities and upkeeping of buildings a whole lot. And on this committee, that I understand that is the responsibility, one of the responsibilities of this committee. However, just to get to the point, I want to say, basically, I agree with a lot of what you said, but I just want to put it in the perspective of, I don't agree with the fact of just giving them the $2,500, because we need to know exactly where that money is going and how it's being spent. And I think that we do too much of just giving someone that's just no different than giving somebody $2,500 $2,500 check and tell them just go do what needs to be done. How do we know what actually being done? I mean, this is the way we do it now, is a good check and balance system. To make a long story short, thank you.
Thank you.
So my only thought, we know that parts of Hilton Head Highland High School will be coming down within the next few years. So I really have some grave concerns about painting the entire building. I understand why you're saying it's time for Ladies Island Middle, because no decision has been made about Ladies Island Middle. But I would like to see at least half of this paint, or leave, transferred to restrooms, fixing restrooms.
Yeah, Mr. Gamble, do you have any comments?
Well, I'm agreeing with most of what you're all saying, but I don't agree that the process is flawed in the first place.
And I
If
think
we keep getting twice as many projects that need to be erased or pushed out, that, we can't accommodate, then we need to find either a different way of allotting money for those things like painting and other things to be done as needed, or with a regiment or whatever, and 8% for doing real other HVAC and other type of capital improvements.
Yeah, to me,
Because we get bogged down in the individualistic things when you look at when you're gonna paint, when you're not gonna paint, and, is there gonna be money to paint, and all that stuff. And we can't fix that now. But I think we at the point where we have to trust what Robert and them decide is the best way to go forward and maintain the facilities at best with the money we are allotting at this point.
yeah, I think
That's what I thought last time we met too.
Yeah.
But we can pick. You did the same thing last time. We can pick through this thing, and we're not going to come to any conclusion on the whys. And we're not going to come to any conclusion on who's right and who's wrong about those things, because you're going to have the backlash. You're going to have the students saying the walls probably need painting, and you're going to have the students that say it's bathroom. And we should be able to make that proper decision without hearing from them, at least without not anticipating that you're going to hear from the painting. But that's fine if that's where we decided to go. And I think we definitely have to look at this process of how we just got too many things in there that can be done that we're not paying to get done.
Yeah, no, that's my thing, is I think we've got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects that we could do.
Yeah,
And
right,
we're doling them out 25 million at a time.
right.
And I don't think the board, and I'm not talking about us, the board, I'm talking about when we structured this whole thing, we didn't give much in the way of priorities, but I don't want to sit here and argue over $17,000 for staircase coverings. I don't know, but at the same time, I don't want to spend 700, I don't feel like some of the priorities, which I think is educational, which I think is all the roofs should be fixed before we do some of these other things, and all the kids should have HVAC before we do some of these other things. And I think we should make sure that they have the classroom. I mean, I know this is removed, but some of these things that have kind of been sitting out there, digital messaging boards, 3 digital messaging boards. I don't feel like that's 8% projects. Or if we had all our roofs fixed and all our HVAC and floors and decent furniture and clean restrooms and then we still had money, we could look at digital messaging boards. But I feel like it's painful for you guys to have to come in here and say,
Yeah, I mean,
this is why we're doing this and
Possible
that.
task, right?
But then I also feel like we're looking at this 25 million and I'm like, wait, I think Trisha's brought this up several times. Have the students all gotten their HVAC, So I don't know. I just sort of feel like rather than going through line by line, which is a tedious and time consuming exercise, we can just vote 25 million with some priorities, or I don't know how you guys want to do it. Just say what you guys recommend is fine.
Well, just specifically again, line 82 with Hilton Head Island High School. We've used the mantra that with certain things haven't been done there because we know we're getting a new high school. And now, 727 is one of our biggest line item numbers in all of this. And I just, I don't know that that's actually then, I mean, that's different criteria all of a sudden. We're not going to do this because we know the school's coming down, but let's put because it's on the plan, because it's on the plan instead
That's
of
a bad decision, right?
So I think everybody would understand if I were remodeling my house, I wouldn't go through and start painting the whole thing, especially if I knew half of it was coming down in 2-3 years. But I would love to see that transferred to these restrooms.
Problem with the restrooms is we're not able to do it.
So, but we have 8 other priority schools of restrooms.
Yes,
I'm not just
focus on
talking,
those.
I'm not just talking Hilton Head Islands, restrooms. Not just, I mean, if there was anything because they are one of the 8 priority schools that's on this list. But if there was anything that could be done there.
As I said, we can revisit it and try to find what we're capable of doing
With what you have, right? Because it doesn't make sense to remodel those with the buildings coming down or part of the buildings coming down. So I just think that when we have a criteria for not doing something, that has to follow through for that entire project that might be occurring there.
The other thing is, I think one of my other questions, I was trying to find recommended, but the covered walkway from athletic exit to mobiles. Why is that more important than getting the elevators up to code? Right? Like those are the kind of questions that I have. And it's just, there's no way to know. There's no way to go through here and pick at all these things. We haven't given you guys, we haven't been fair as the board to give you guys priorities, So to say elevators come ahead of covered walkways and we can't make those determinations. So I'm just a little frustrated with the process because I feel like we're doing some projects on here that are kind of just nice things because we happen to be shutting down that school and we're kind of neglecting bigger and more urgent projects that go more towards what I think the school should be focused on or the school board is focused on. So
Yeah.
With all that being said, I don't know where that leaves us.
I like to say that I don't totally agree that that's not their purview. Elevators before paved sidewalks.
I'm willing to make it their purview.
I think that's their purview. I mean, we rely on them to make that kind of decision. I hope, and the same thing with the painting and the 8-year plan. If it's an 8-year plan and you're gonna paint in 8 years and you're gonna paint in 8 more years, and in 8 more years it's not gonna be a school there, or 4 more years it's not gonna be a school there, then that's also a decision that you must make in terms of the effect of things. I don't care how much the complaint is, it's whether you're being good stewards of the dollar in terms of that. And I think those things are decisions that we really have to make. It's gonna be firm and it's gonna be difficult, but that's coming. It's gonna be difficult things if that school is about to be torn down, and every little thing gonna be a problem, gonna be a complaint. But that's also a part of the process of removing a school with a school there.
Yeah.
And I throw away $1 million just because you're throwing away just so you don't hear people grumble. I'd rather hear them grumble.
Well, I think they would grumble with the painting, even just with
Yeah.
given the condition of
Even if
everything
it's
else.
painted right, even if it's
Like,
painted,
great.
they're gonna grumble over stuff. So let's do the right thing in terms of the dollars, so that when things come up later, we you got that money that we didn't waste.
Yeah, I'm happy to make it somebody else's purview because I don't think we can really figure out the value of all these things.
Yeah, that's not,
But I think there's a theme here. There's a theme that, you know, safety and security, and basics,
Safety and
HVAC, roofs leaking, you know. Carol, we saw some of those roofs that were leaking onto the sides of the walls, and that's the computer, a
yeah.
line of computers right there. I mean,
So CPRC actually made priorities. Safety and security number 1, replacement schools number 2, additions, which goes to educational equity and capacity, right? Renovations, technology infrastructure, then Kate, then furniture, then athletics, then playgrounds, parking, then parking lots, driveway, and sidewalks. You know, and so we haven't done that as a board. We have not provided really much in the way of guidance on this. But I prefer this scenario rather than we're going to do a bunch of little projects at these 10 schools because we're doing summer work, but that may not be feasible. I understand that may not be feasible, but I think that's where the constant, you know, sort of long-winded discussions come in. So I think for right now, I mean, we could just, we're not required to approve specific plans, are we? I can't imagine other school districts sitting here and going through.
no, I mean, we would have to make a recommendation to the full board to accept the 8% projects,
Right.
right? Isn't that typically what comes out of operations?
And I think we can.
I don't think our system will, I don't know how it would work if you didn't improve a list of projects. If you just said, I can tell you finance, between us and finance, we wouldn't know how to deal with that.
Right.
I don't even know how finance would deal with
But
that.
what's the point of approving projects if they don't even get done? I mean, when all's said and
Well,
done.
that is a
It's the illusion
valid
of control.
point. And that's one of the things we're going to work on and present at the next meeting is a format of reporting on project status so that you can be more aware of what's going on with the projects.
I looked at
Why
like
something might have changed. Yeah.
Greenville they wanted to buy, and they just basically said, okay, we want to do all the doors in the district that need doing. So they assessed all the exterior doors in the district. They identified 268. They said it's going to cost this much, and it was approved. That to me, and it's more like a executive summary. That to me, I can approve. It's hard for me to approve, you know, all
Now,
these.
is that
And that's-
referendum or 8%? Because that's more how we did the referendum, of course. We had the list of projects. No.
I do, yeah.
But I think as we
More
move
narrative.
forward with all the FCA data
Yes.
going forward, that's exactly what you're gonna see. Just like you're seeing these little restroom priorities and the flooring priorities, you're gonna start seeing that because they're assessing every single exterior door in this school district. And we're gonna know which ones are gonna need replacing at some point. So as we go forward in changing the way we're doing things based off this facility condition assessment, you'll see more of that kind of thing rise to the top.
Yeah, because I'm not a fan of the way, it's not a criticism. I'm just not a fan of this.
No,
Right,
I'm hearing you wanting us to be more specific. And of course, after the FCA on a specific project, like this is the project this money will go to, not where we have it set up now. It's a little more flexible and because we didn't have as specific data up front. Now you're gonna have specific data.
Mhm.
Now, the flip side of that's gonna be, again, you're gonna have 25 million and you're gonna have 80 million in safety security
Sure.
spelled out with these elevators, these floors, these fire alarms, and you're not gonna be able to do it all. But you're gonna have that specific information.
So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, but then that's the time, and from your perspective, from our perspective with you, I would expect that you're gonna follow that kind of template that they iron out there is what is facilities control, how are you protecting our facilities overall? And if the security is an outlier in terms of the total thing, then the focus then should be on the other stuff that the 25 million can cover.
Right.
And maybe we have to come up with some kind of referendum or something to cover that 80 million if it's gonna be that
That's
much.
a number, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but if it is a big number that's gonna throw everything else out, And point in securing buildings that's gonna collapse eventually because you didn't do the other things.
Well, I think that's where like.
So that's why the other things are, in my mind, should be priority lists that you come up with, looking at all this. Some of this stuff is just frivolous and really don't need to be a part of facilities improvement.
Well, that's, I think, the biggest problem I have with this list is that we're basically doing a bunch of little projects because you said, because they asked for it at a school that happens to be shut down. And I'm like, we got $25 million, we got $80 million worth, or however much it is in safety and security and these other higher priority items. We should be looking at it more holistically. Because I don't want to sit here and argue, but it does frustrate me that we're spending $17,000 on rubber stair raisers and not doing not doing this over here, or whatever these, I can go through and give a bunch of examples, but to me, it'd be much better to say, okay, we found this big chunk of security. This is how we're prioritizing it, because you guys are the experts, we're not. And then this is what we're going to do this summer. I'm good with that. I don't want to approve some of these little things, and just pulling them off, but what I'm talking about. And, oh yeah, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I hear what I hear what some of y'all what you're saying. But in terms of what Mr. Odding said, I do agree with how he said,
Mr. Smith, lost you.
Even all doors.
Hey, Mr. Smith, when you check your phone, we can't hear you, and we'll come right back to you in just a minute. That's odd. Okay.
Can't get you.
Sorry, Will. But
Not
also
an explanation on just and
Doesn't have to mute him. I don't
yeah, I
he
think,
hear
can
us.
we mute him?
Maybe
Can you
just
hear me
send him a message. Oh, much better.
Yeah.
Can you hear me
Try
now?
again.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What I was saying was not in terms of what Mr. Odding was saying about it would that how they would fix the how
Molly, can you mute him? Smith, put your hand down, put it back up when you get to a better spot. We can't spend 20. Just hit mute.
Okay, maybe you could set.
I mean, basically run that through finance. I was muted. That's why y'all couldn't hear me. I was muted.
We can't hear you. Sound very electronic and drug out. We can't hear like your voice is dragged out. So we can't understand.
How about
So my suggestion is we just, approve $25 million. The other thing is it seems like so much of this is contingent on the facilities condition assessment, right? Which we don't have yet. So can we just approve $25 million and then continue to have a conversation about the facilities assessment and see if that impacts some of this stuff?
Don't know that. We've never done that before.
It's always been a specific list. And
Right.
so I think that's where my frustration is here, the second time going around, ops, is that even though we had the list and we looked and then the list is not necessarily that which is being completed. And I understand the reasons why. I mean, I understand, but I
Seems like
agree
an
with you.
exercise in
Just
futility.
seems,
The prices are changing.
yeah, I mean, my goodness, from one estimated 400 something. So
The other thing is the referendum coming, like I know parking lots are on this, I don't know if they got pushed or removed. And I know that that's on the, there are things that are going to be put on the referendum that maybe are on this list that then would get shuffled around. So I don't know, it just seems like.
So your concern is that if we recommend to the board to approve an 8% spending of $25 million, but not necessarily, it has to be these projects because the FCA is coming out and it might come back. Is there not a little bit of that ability to do that compared to specific projects?
Now, I wish Tanya was here.
Yep.
She was on, but she got off.
Really?
She was on for most of the meeting.
Oh
but
my
she
But what's the
just got
problem
off.
with finance? Because we can get talk and see if Dick Geyer can get on. And
Well, because they like to build a budget based off of that
And they like
25
to
million
track
and
your spending and
allocate
how
it.
it's so.
but you guys just changed the spending anyways.
Yeah,
Once
But
it
they
kind of
shouldn't.
goes, no,
They
not
do
really.
it, but I don't believe that they should change the spending. So
What?
I said,
Sorry, Will.
you said that they changed the spending as in they changed what is being voted on. Could you give me clarification on that?
Well, also we were talking about like with inflation, the resurfacing of tennis courts went from 178 to 427,000. So right now it seems very hard to set a budget for anything. And so my question is, what's the advantage to finance knowing that we've set aside $17,000 for rubber stair raisers, as opposed to we've got $25 million, and as the date gets closer and maybe things come up that we need to add that jump priority because it breaks. I don't see the advantage of planning all the projects and budgeting them a year in advance.
Because what happens is in past years, principals and different people know exactly what's supposed to be done. So that's the transparency part of it. Because that you budget and you said that these are the projects, this school, that school, these 5 schools or how many other schools are supposed to be getting 8% work done. And so therefore, that's a way that people in the community are able to understand that work is getting done, but also the building administrators and also superintendent, also us as board members, that's work that we are expecting to get done. So wherever get done, and they have different hoops and hurdles to climb. That's a different component of it. But knowing that we have set forth to put the action to get the work done. It's something different than the prices changing and all. And I mean that's almost a part of life. That's like saying, well, you jump in the car and you intend to go to a meeting, but you get hit. At the end of the day, you still have to have to get dressed, get up and wash up and get dressed and jump in the car and actually go to the meeting. But you can't anticipate what's going to happen along the way. So I mean, do you not jump in the car and go? So no, this outline and what has been done, that to me there is merits of it, because there are parts of it that is measurable at this time. To just give the money, say, hey, you do what you want to do with it. That to me that's not really what we're here to do. I mean that's just my opinion of it. I think that it's very critical to know exactly where the money is being spent on, what is being spent on, and who's getting what. So
Okay.
everything is fair and equitable across the board.
Thank
And
you,
needs.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Mr. Stribinger?
Thank you. I'm going to agree with Mr. Smith. I think voting to spend $25 million and not having a list of projects is hollow. I don't think it has any value at all. If you want to delay until after, and I agree with you, the FCA seems to be pivotal, but if you want to delay until after that to come up with a list, then I think that would make sense. But just approving 25 million is just a waste of time.
No, that's what I was thinking is, I'm sorry, that's what I'm thinking was to get more information. And also we'll be in discussions about what's going on referendum, so I don't know why we would need to decide all this a year in advance, because it seems like it would be changing anyways.
So, what did you want to speak for?
Yeah, go ahead. You're speaking now.
The one issue is that, as I believe Tanya mentioned in our last meeting, in order to borrow the 25 million, we have to, we do the bond, they set the millage ahead of time, and we borrow during the year. The county auditor has set, for the most part, we have to have that list to him by the end of June, or he will not set that millage. Like if we just tell him we're going to borrow 25, hopefully that's Tanya. All right, she can jump in and take over. They will not let us tell them that ahead of time now. So we have to have that set by the end of June.
Have to have what set? Just that there is going to be a borrowing of 25 million, or you actually send the project list?
To the state auditor, I mean, county auditor,
Yeah.
we would just say the amount of it.
Right, okay.
So
Tanya's on.
Tanya, or if you were there, thank you for joining us. The question is, are they allowed to approve just say that $25 million worth of projects without having a complete project list? And what issues would that cause if they did that?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We've never done that before, so that would cause some difficulties with our budgeting process, because we would need a definitive list of what you're approving. So with the money, you're also approving a list of projects as well. So of which we would budget for and ensure that were completed, or, you know, that we're not overspending or whatever. So I would think that that would not be something that we'd be able to do. I didn't hear I didn't hear the discussion, so I don't know the context of the question, but generally with the money, the approval of the list comes as well. Now, you could have preliminary, is the purpose to hurry up and get the approval made before the auditor's deadline?
And that's prior to the FCA,
The facilities condition assessment.
which is mid-July.
I believe, yes, we're going to show you.
In order to issue bonds, you have to provide information on what projects you're going to be completing, so that those are then collateral for the bonds. So I would probably need to ask Franny Heiser the legal questions. If there's any ambiguity we could have, like a little bit, do we need every single line out? I could check with her.
And I have a question, Mrs. Strabinger, for you. The OEs that we have don't really give any guidance to the results type of thing, which is supposed to keep us out of basically going line by line and looking at whether or not we should do an extra badge swipe at an elementary school, right? I mean, that's what our OEs are supposed to keep us from doing. But I don't think our OEs provide much guidance, and I don't think we have any results that we can point to. So what, in coherent governance, what guides this process for us?
I think coherent governance tell us that we should rely on the experts. You know, these are operational decisions, and we should leave it to the operations people to decide. But it's human nature that we're going to look at this and say, and I agree with what you said earlier, maybe we should be a little clearer on our priorities. But I do have a question also.
Please.
Can we approve the list and then after the FCA modify the list?
Yeah.
We can do that, right?
And then with the,
That's a Tanya.
But we could change our mind because we approved the list and then changed it afterwards.
But the
Well-
difference is what was approved on the list was a renovation of restrooms. We are renovating restrooms.
Okay, I'm just saying, like,
So so the FCA may say, you know, we may decide out of it that you're going to need to do more fire alarms or more elevators.
Okay.
Well, that's not on this unless you approve the elevator item, and then we can still do elevators. But
Hold on. I'm trying to find out why that priority is gonna overshadow, you know, what you perceive as a priority here. And that's the board's purview when they come with that recommendation, right? I mean, that's not 8% directives.
I'm not following you.
Around the St. Helens gym.
I'm saying, this
We
is,
added it later.
yeah, this is just a kind of assessment of where we are, right? The seat back there. And then we make the adjustment from what they recommend, correct?
That's what we're in the process of doing right now, is making any adjustments to what we.
Well, you can't make the adjustment until you get that for that. But I'm talking about order to have a good foundation before that comes, then we're trying to prioritize this, right?
Right.
So why don't we come up with a list of A, B, C projects, where A is the most important of the projects to be done, and
Is that not what the FCA is going to be doing for us? Isn't that facilities condition assessment going to show us where the greatest needs are? And so that will only then be able to inform our 2024 8%. If what Ms. Crosby just said is that we have to provide as collateral for these bonds, a project list and that which can be tracked, then really this FCA, which is not coming out till July or August, right, or some, later in the summer, will inform our 2024 8%.
which might.
And it is on
which
some
might-
items. We are using that data that's available to help make some of those decisions now.
which, yeah,
For these.
I'm suggesting that we have a blueprint already when they come out, so we can overlap or remap what they've directed and what you've done or needs to do the next year. You got your list already, and the check off is from that list. And let's say a C project didn't get done, then that C project was a C project in the first place, and B projects and A projects
That's
need
kind
to
of
be
the above the
done.
See above the
line.
line.
Yeah, especially if they are saying that. And it gives us a good tracking system in terms of, okay, this C project has been there for 15 years. And it probably don't need to be done if it's been there for 15 years, you know what I mean? It never needed to be done in the first place. But I think this is what I would expect that you can come up with for us, as opposed to us coming up with it for you.
So basically, Ms. Crosby, you're saying that we really do need to approve a project list, correct?
Well, I'd like to get some guidance from Ms. Heiser in order to definitively tell you that one way or the other. I mean, I know that those projects do serve as collateral, but I think they may be, there is not a specific listing that's provided to bond people who buy our bonds that is used with a specific list of things with dollar amounts or anything to that nature. If there's generally broad categories, so there may be some flexibility that we could issue, 25 million of bonds and then come back, within a reasonable period of time to be able to provide that detailed listing and match it up with the 25 million. And then there's the matter also of the unused role. I believe I brought forward in March, I believe it was the unused 8% project list as well, or unused funds. I believe it was $8 million. So whether that's used for additional projects or rolled into another bond to lower a bond issue of some sort, that the board does have flexibility to spend those dollars as well that are already borrowed and on cash on hand. So just wanted to make sure you may want to identify the 25 million and then know that you have the other dollars or some number of those to potentially do additional projects or use in some other way. So anyway, but I could contact Ms. Heiser this evening and have you a response by first thing in the morning on that.
So, and Mr. Smith, let me get you in just 1 second. I think what we could do is have a conditional approval for 25 million for the June 7th meeting, conditional on the facilities, the FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. But we could conditionally approve 25 million based on the current list with the understanding that that's conditional, because I can't imagine that a year out, if we don't put the rubber stair risers on, that would cause a collateral issue with our bonds. I mean, I don't think other schools do this level of, and from what I can tell, other districts don't go into this much detail. you know, we're going to build a covered walkway from the school to the athletic field. And then some guy's going to show up and be like, but I loaned you money. And there's, you know, the covered walkway goes with the
Schools
cafeteria.
are, yeah, some schools are very specific
Yeah.
Mhm.
project wise. I think we're kind of in a midway. But I think what I would ask Tanya what I would suggest is that we look at the ability to edit or modify it at a later date. So you would approve this and we could revisit it, say in a couple months. And actually, as Tanya says, she's also got that $8 million of closeout money that's gonna be rolled in. Now, you can better decide where that money goes. And if you add to this, or if you want to modify this, or if you want to just use that money to cover the below the line stuff we already have. So there are options there. I think anything that you feel very strongly about should be changed, such as maybe the Hilton Head painting, or we talked about removing the digital marquee. I think we had consensus on that,
It's removed.
that we could remove those
Freed up that area.
and then approve this and say, and keep in your minds that we can revisit it at a later date, as long as Tanya says we have the ability to do that
Right.
after
I
she
think that
talks
makes
with
the most
council.
sense.
Now, she may talk to council and says we do not have the ability to do
Right.
that. So I mean, I don't know.
Then we just put in broad categories like restrooms.
And your point of having to approve.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
think
Tanya.
have it in broad categories. I think Franny will say that is acceptable. So we can have it in broad categories and then drill down at some other point. As long as we get to a point where we have a definitive list for budget purposes at some point down the road before we begin those projects, we do, you know, for financial purposes, we do need to have that at some point. But I think for bond purposes, she probably would say that as long as they're in relatively some broad categories for, and usually renovations, replacements of HVAC, roofs, that sort of thing is what we generally advertise for. So, but I can follow up with her and get you an answer right away. So.
I can just have one last, and you're dead on, getting stuff a year ahead of time is tough.
Mhm.
But a lot of times trying to make it so that if something pops up, we can address it, but because it is tough.
Mr. Smith, thanks for waiting.
No problem. I'm also in term once again, you know, I'm still with doing things abroad. If you look now, people, you know, giving broad answers and things like that. People, I don't think our constituents, because that is a part of our job, I don't think that they would be happy with that. I think being more intentional and understanding exactly where project money is going at, and being intentional about where we're putting it at, and what projects are being worked on. I think that's more conducive to the community and also to the district, so that we know exactly, and everyone knows exactly what's getting done and what's supposed to be done, and everyone has a clear mind. But also just sitting here thinking too, and in terms on safety and security, do we have all the safety and security stuff done already? Because about 2 years ago, that was a major emergency in the district, safety and security. So, Ms. Auden, do we have all the safety and security work done yet?
So the answer to that would be no. Those are renovation projects and not 8% projects. So I think we're
Referendum.
referendum
Right.
projects.
And yeah.
Right, and I do understand those are referendum projects, but what I also do know is that referendum money could be running a little tight, and there was an emergency back then, and I'm sure it's still an emergency now. You know, my question is too: he with 8% in funding, do those projects do that way more need versus want right now than these 8% projects that we're voting on, and in terms of dollar and with prices going up? Because if that was an emergency back then why is it not an emergency right now? Because we went on a referendum to have those things, and the money's running tight. So how would we not know whether we need to put some of those 8% projects on? I mean, how would we know that we would need to put some of those safety and security issues on 8% projects to make sure that those obligations are fulfilled? I mean, so this conversation is really deeper than, you know, what we're kind of hashing out right now. So I mean, those are questions that are sticking out to me.
Yeah, and Mr. Smith, to your point, I did, that is one of the few things that our OE says is that highest priority should be assigned to safety and security. That's in our OE. And then
Okay.
clean, sanitary, and safe.
If I can just address the safety and security referendum projects, we are building a plan to ensure that they're all completed without, you know, having to borrow additional referendum funding. So at this time, staff is not recommending the use of 8% funding for referendum project supplementing.
Make a motion to.
And I do understand that. Hello? And I said I do understand that, but at the same time, my plight is that I think that having to know exactly what you're spending the money on, and we're debating about what projects to be to move forward. My point is that where are some of the projects that didn't get completed from the last 8%, meeting, and in terms of last year, because those, you can't tell me that those projects just went away and now this year they don't matter. So that's why you have board involvement.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Smith. And I think what we're gonna propose here is that we recommend that we conditionally approve the 25 million so they can borrow it. And then we do, I think, need to have some deeper conversations going forward about how this.
I don't think you want to conditionally approve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, wait, so Tanya or Robert, can you help us with the wording then for the motion? So I recommend to the board acceptance of the 8% the 2024 8% project list.
Not to exceed 25.
An amount not to exceed.
Not, okay, an amount not to exceed 25 million.
Yeah.
Right. We'll need to modify it. I mean, right now we're at the 24.
995.
And if we, so there's a couple ways. Yeah.
No, so we're right under.
If we remove the marquee, well,
Yeah.
Just leave it where it is, and then
we will come with something very close to this number with some of the changes we discussed and let Robin know what that, well,
So not to exceed 25 million.
or we can, yeah, you could say right now and not to exceed as listed, and we'll bring the updated list to the board meeting.
Now, Ms. Kaiser is planning on becoming on the June 21st board meeting. So I don't think we were expecting a vote this board meeting. Unless.
I thought.
Oh, so-
Our plan was to come to this board meeting with the vote.
Yes.
Oh,
You have
For the 8%, so you have it before the next, for the 21st when she comes.
Well, basically, we're already approving if that motion is taken to the June 7th, you're approving the bonds. So without bond resolution. So.
Oh, well, then we wait and get some of these answers, and you could bring back a modified list, right? If we have another operations committee meeting.
FCA, maybe?
No, it won't be in time.
Wouldn't have the total, but you would have.
So Tanya, when do you need this by?
I need it for the June 21st board meeting. And I can bring the bond resolution in that amount at that meeting. And Franny was planning on coming in person to that meeting.
So Chair,
On the 8th.
we could have
Our next scheduled meeting
Is
is
the
already on the 8th.
so if at our next meeting on the 8th, Tanya, you'd have an answer from Ms. Heiser about the flexibility of the project list, right?
Yes.
Robert and Carol, you guys might take some of what you've heard today and come back with maybe a little modified list, right? And then we could
And
do
you
it.
also will have the pilot school projects that we did for the FCA. You will be seeing that because we wanted to show you the format and talk about that before we finished up with all the rest of the school. So we wanted you to.
Right, but that's not gonna inform this list.
No.
Okay.
Tanya, what I'm hoping to get
No
is
more
an
than it already
idea
has.
of how
No
much
more than it already has.
detail
Got it.
Ms. Crosby, how much, what I would like to know by our next meeting, which is the 8th, how much detail did we have to have in these lists?
So
Because it's not clear to me if we have to have everything very specifically laid out or if we just need categories.
Okay. I'll
That-
contact Ms. Heiser first thing and get you an answer.
Have to identify schools if they're collateral.
Well, but you have so many things on there already that are
Said
digital.
that I mean, so I'm getting mixed signals.
We can't have that.
Well, because part of it is I'm feeling a desire to have a very even more specific list on exact projects that we're spending on. But you're also asking us to come up with a more generic list for the bond.
I want a more generic list, but that's just my personal opinion. I haven't
So
surveyed.
Those are two completely different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, no, my personal take is more categorical. But I think we need better categories: safety, security, educational equity. I think you call it academic support, asset preservation. Right now, everything's kind of jumped into asset
You can have
preservation.
them.
And you're wanting us to move away from the format of working in closed buildings.
That's just a personal thing. So I'm not.
I
don't speak for the
think
group.
it better serve you that way. I mean, if you start looking at it from a generic standpoint with equity involved, I don't think you have to document everything as a project here and project there and dollar amount here and a dollar amount there, because I mean, to me, your role is to protect our capital assets, and whatever you make those decisions from with fidelity, we expect. And if you got to come up and defend how you spent 8 million here and only 3 million there, I hope that you'll have, a good, reasonable defense. That's the way I'm looking at it now. I'm just a first term board member, but I think a lot of this stuff is part of that. We want this, you want that, and it's got us read this list. That stuff is not really needed as capital improvement. That's where we've gotten over time, and because people perceive that they weren't getting their fair share. But your job is to protect that total asset process that we have. How much billions of dollars we got tied up here. We want you to keep it at a level. And I think that means prioritizing the improvement over and over, making sure that the right dollars are being spent with the right bang to it. That's the way I look at it. And like, I think y'all mentioned something about the rubber
Staircase riser.
Yes, I mean, how important is that in the overall picture? That never should have got made the list in the first place in my mind.
Well,
Unless it's
it
safety and
does.
security.
Unless it's safety, because little children going up the stairs, it's slippery, and in Port Royal Elementary, you do. I mean,
My
so
point is, I don't
And
feel like
that
we
should
can
have been
assess that.
automatically a part.
Right.
I just put under safety
Yeah,
and
that should have
security.
been a part of the upgrade of safety and security.
I just, from a board perspective.
Yeah.
So someone comes up to you at a cocktail party, you're hanging out, they're like, oh, you're on the school board. I heard you just approved $25 million. I'm like, yes. And we're going to be putting rubber stair risers at Port Royal Elementary School and a roof on the gym at Bluffton. I mean, you just want to say, yeah, we're looking at asset protection, safety and security, replacing roofs. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I have the qualifications, and I don't want to bicker over these projects. I personally do not think that the board as a whole should look at it as these 10 schools are getting closed down. So we're going to do a bunch of stuff at these 10 schools and nothing at the other 25.
And the other angle is, we be qualified to do it.
Yeah.
An evolving election process where one year you got 4 board members, and then next year you got two-term guys who've been there. But I think it's, whoever you pass that mantle to, gonna look at what you got done and what was done. And that's the only way we can sustain over.
So Robert needs to know what's coming back, what needs to come back,
Right.
the next meeting, June 8th.
I have my
Right.
hand up.
Mr. Smith?
Just to adjust some of just to address that. Actually, what happens? I listened to what Mr. Campbell was saying, and in terms of talking about shutting down the school. You know, just to understand the safety and security of a school. Let's say you have a lot of updates that need to be done in the school, and you have a lot of paint that is strong in the school. You have nails everywhere. Then and then you have in summer school. How do you expect kids to be in that building as a safety? We've now, as officials and as a district, we're put to some degree. There's a reason why they shut the building, why they shut those buildings down, so they can get stuff that could be possibly toxic or dangerous to students that were serving at that time. So I will say I do agree. I do understand it. I do understand the terms of shutting down a school, just because of the fact that we don't want kids in the building. I remember last summer, and I'm sure Mr. I remember, because I believe he and I had a conversation about that. At Lake Island Elementary School, when they were painting, they had to close down a certain part of the school. They had to close it down for a couple of days, so because parents were calling and complaining and saying that they didn't want their kids in summer school or in the school while the building was being painted. So I do understand why they closed schools down, so I will definitely understand and support them closing schools down during the summertime to do those upgrades, because if we want things done, then we have to make sure that we're taking the necessary and precaution of our citizens as well. So I mean, that's just something just to food for thought. Maybe maybe some board members knew, some board members might didn't know. So that's just another way, playing devil's advocate. That's just another way to look at things and see why they may close down buildings. And then during times of summer renovations. No, I mean, I do understand that. Thank you.
So my thoughts on what to bring next meeting, and tell me if I'm off. In listening to you all, I think we ought to bring two versions. A modified version of this, based on the comments we've had today. We'll bring another version that will be, for the most part, taking these into broader categories and lumping them together. And at the next meeting, we were already planning. I do have a thought on how it can work, because we were already planning a reporting mechanism that we were going to bring to the next meeting to start showing how we can report on the already approved projects. And so when you go in the broad categories, what finance is going to do, let's say like furniture. Furniture is a broad category. You say you have $1 million in furniture. Well, then as each project comes on, finance is going to break that down into like you spent $100,000 in media center furniture at Hilton Head SCA. Well, then, so when we report by that reporting mechanism, we're going to have to report more on how that's being broken down into individual projects. So I think we could bring that, those two mechanisms, we can bring that to the next meeting, and you can decide whether you like staying with the format we started with, or whether you would like to move to a more generic along with the reporting mechanism.
So the more generic and reporting mechanism might be what you show us, but you have to have that detailed level.
It will eventually get, as it's going to eventually get to this level, but it's going to start out with an overall, like you know, I don't know if it'll be as broad as safety and security. That's a very broad topic, but well, an easy one, HVAC. Well, HVAC, and we may have to have a plan, which is going to take all these HVAC projects, put them into kind of a plan to show that we've done it. But HVAC is going to be HVAC projects, $8 million. Here's our plan. And as we use that $8 million, we'll report where it's being spent individually. And we're going to have to come back to you and let you know how that's going.
Right.
That should make your life a little bit easier too, right?
That's why at first I was like, but as I've listened to you, I'm like, oh, I like this.
Because and HVAC is a perfect example. Things that, and they may even assess that those things have 5 more years, but suddenly they die.
Yeah.
And they just
my
keep
worst
doing
nightmare.
parts and whatever. And suddenly what was priority 2 is now priority 1, like
Yeah.
now. So that flexibility would be great.
There's like some data and some criteria.
And on the
Correct.
restroom one, again, it would be a restrooms, big number, kind of like we have now, and we'll have to report on a regular basis as we start to select those projects and where they're gonna fall.
So this might require a little more back-end reporting to the board as things change.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm seeing, but
And then
that's what I
goes to
heard,
document.
that's what I heard you were asking for already.
I agree.
You're right.
That's
No,
what
you-
that's what
I
I'm
think that
asking.
makes a more
Especially the last
natural
meeting
flow.
that we had, right?
That's what I'm asking.
And that would really evolve us more into being able to use that FCA data because it's going to be prioritized, what's monitored, what's watched. And as we do projects, we update it.
And then if something changes, you
Yes.
document why it was changed.
Right.
So it's not sort of a, we don't know.
It's gonna require more reporting to the operations committee like we kind of do to the clock now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is what, because I
But
mean,
less of this up front, right?
right, what you're requesting sounds like a more generic upfront, more reporting as we go along, where previously we did more work up front and less as we went along.
So, yeah, but you end up, yeah.
Yeah, watch
Mr.
the
Smith, do you have something to add?
I think more information and a clear understanding and being intentional about what's getting fixed and when is it getting fixed. I think that is more important to taxpayers because believe it or not, you do have a lot of taxpayers who do watch and who do listen. Being generic is not to me, being generic is less transparent. I think that we could possibly open up an ant nest, so we could possibly be that's a slippery slope. And as a board member, I definitely I don't feel safe with giving less information, and that's kind of some of what we're saying, and that's not the role as operations committee and as people who are elected in this district that I would want to take. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not. And then also my other question is, what does the OE say? What does the OE say, and have the and how does this fall into what operations originally were doing? Because I've been on the operations committee for the last 3 years, and this is not kind of how I remember and understand this process going. So I'm just a little concerned about the whole process about less is best. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so I think we're we landed. Fortunately, you pulled us out of a vortex of confusion. And I know that means a little bit of work for you, but I hope in the long run, it might bring us to a better process. So we don't have a motion coming out because we don't need one. Because you lied, because you sorry, that was going to be a joke.
What did you just say?
Let's close this meeting.
It was a flippant, joking comment that
I got it.
Anyway, so I guess that we don't really have much coming out of committee, just a better understanding of what we need to do going forward.
And you have more
And you
time.
said you will get it on the 21st.
Yeah, well, we'll see you guys on the 8th, part of the clock.
Right.
So on the 8th, we're going to meet at Hilton Head High School.
Yeah.
What time are we starting?
Well, we need some time.
So what time are we starting?
So clock's at 6.
Correct.
I mean, I think by an hour and a half to 2 hours, we're all sort of over it and brain dead for the most part. So I think 4 o'clock, and then hopefully we'll get done 5:30, 5:45. And
You have a lot of items. I think what you're going to get in this next meeting is a presentation of both that you're going to have to meet again on to make a decision.
And also, I think if you have stuff in advance to look at, that we could maybe give some feedback on, questions that we're going to ask so that it kind of flows a little bit better. I found that to be helpful sometimes, if that's possible. So let's do 4 because I can't do any, I think any earlier makes this, but it's,
Yep, 4 is good.
Is that good with you, Mel? Did you want to do 3, 2 o'clock, noon?
I don't know. I don't care. It's Wednesday.
Wednesday, June 8th, which is a week from this Wednesday, isn't it? That's
It is.
crazy.
Yeah, it's really just a week away. Yep. Thank you, Ms. Crosby.
Thank you, Ms. Crosby.
Welcome.
All right. Oh, Mr. King, motion to adjourn.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. Sorry.
She's home now.
Do you want to
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Done.